So like I mentioned, your vocal cords look like this when you're using them, and so when you cough, it's more of a slamming together, and so that's kind of like misusing your muscles, kind of like using them too much at the gym, and so that can also add to the irritation that you might be experiencing.
Okay,
so
that makes sense.
Yeah, so then using a silent cough is kind of keeping still clearing that tickle that you might be feeling, but instead of having them hit together, you just have a stream of air going through. So it kind of looks like this, like a so then you're getting that kind of cough sensation, but without that actual contact of your vocal folds.
Okay.
Does that kind of make sense?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll go through and practice towards the end of our session to see how you feel practicing it.
Cool.
So those are two things that you can do to take care of your vocal hygiene. And then the other thing I would like you to try and use is a confidential voice. So you mentioned that on a daily basis you feel like you're using your voice at around a 7 or an 8, which is pretty loud, and I know you said things can be really loud at work since you're an industrial engineer.
Yeah.
So using a confidential voice, we're going to want to bring your voice usage down to what we would sound like a 4 or 5.
Okay.
And so how do you feel like that would be able to be managed in your everyday life?
I feel like that should probably be okay. Do you think at a 4 or 5 that, people would still be able to hear me at work? Because, we do have to communicate throughout the day.
Right.
So.
Yeah, one way I think, and we can practice again towards the end of our session, after we talk about it, I think you can definitely use multiple avenues to advocate for yourself and make sure that you'd be able to use it. Okay. So if you're at work and you're in a really loud environment, but you do need to communicate with somebody, maybe perhaps asking to move into a quieter room so then you can talk and use that voice, and also make sure that your conversational partner can hear you as well. So then you're both benefiting from that. Do you feel like that would be an option while you're at work?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so now let's go ahead and start practicing. So going off of the vocal hygiene that we started with, I have some charts that you can use along with your daily vocal log. So for your water intake, I think it would be important to kind of visually see how much caffeine you're taking in versus how much water you're taking in every day. Because right now I know you're really heavy on the caffeine and soda.
Yeah.
So every time you have a caffeinated drink, you can make marks. Say you have 4 in one day, then I would try and get at least half balanced out with water, tea, or something with electrolytes so that you can stay nice and hydrated and reduce that irritation.
Okay.
And then as you go, I know it's kind of an adjustment period, so if you have a day that's heavier on water or soda or caffeine, then you can balance the next day out with extra water. And then as drinking water and tea or electrolytes becomes more of a habit, then you'll see this slowly increasing on your water side. So then you can visualize your progress over time. Do you feel like that's something you would be able to do?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great. And then with your cough reduction, using that silent cough that we talked about, it would be the same idea, tracking how many times you're clearing your throat or coughing, and then balancing that out with definitely at least half of them replaced with a silent cough.
Okay.
Do you feel like you'd be able to keep track of that as well?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, great.
Bring it with that log that we talked about.
Yeah, and definitely
just
you
keep
get
it
to
at work.
keep all of these, and I can get you some extra copies as well.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, so then let's start practicing, since we're on vocal hygiene, the water intake will basically just you be having more water throughout the day, like we talked about. And then that silent cough that we talked about, let's go ahead and give that some tries. So I'll show you a couple. So again, instead of that contact that you have with a cough, you can feel your vocal folds vibrating. You could even touch your throat when you're doing that and cough and do you feel that movement, that vibration?
Yeah.
And so when we do our silent cough with like a sound, you can go and so you should feel little to no movement if you want to go ahead and try that. How does that feel?
Yeah, I didn't feel anything
Yeah.
in my throat.
So that's that, instead of that contact that you're always having, that might increase your irritation. Instead, they're staying apart and the air is clearing out the tickle that you might be feeling. So why don't you go ahead and try 5 of those silent coughs on your own and see how they feel.
Okay. Should I do it like after talking or just like go for it?
Whatever you feel is most comfortable. You can take a drink of water in between if you'd like.
Okay. All right. Let's see.
How does that feel?
Oh, good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Nice. And you don't always have to feel your throat. That's like a perceptual thing to make sure if you're wondering if you're doing it right. But if you feel confident enough, then you can just do it like you normally would every day.
Okay.
Yeah. Good.
And one more.
Nice. And so that'll help you reduce that irritation again and still be able to get that throat clear that you might be looking for, just an alternative way to do so.
Okay.
Do you feel like that would be able to implement in your everyday life?
I think so.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we have vocal hygiene marked off. You have your hygiene log for water and your cough reduction and how to do that properly, and remembering that you can always touch your throat and feel for that vibration. And lastly, we'll go ahead and review our confidential voice. So confidential voice, like we mentioned, we want to bring that kind of perceptual scale down to around a 4 or 5. Make sure that you're using your voice kind of like if you're maxing out at the gym, you want to make sure that you're not maxing out your vocal folds.
Okay.
So bringing that down, because I know you can have sometimes a stressful voice environment. So I'd like you to count from 1 to 10 like you would normally.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Good. So that I would say is around your normal area. I'd like you this time to count from 1 to 5 like you normally do, and then bring it down from 5 to 10 to what you would think is your confidential voice.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
That was really good. Yeah, awesome. I like how you brought it down and brought it to a more comfortable level, reducing that kind of irritation or demand that's on your vocal folds.
Okay.
I'd like you to count from 1 to 10 now using just your confidential voice.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Good, really nice. So do you feel like you'd be able to implement that in your everyday life? Thinking about, okay, I might be at an 8 or a 9, how can I bring that down to my confidential voice?
I think so.
Yeah.
My one concern is with work, but we kind of talked about that a little bit and going out into the hallway.
Yeah, good. So advocating for yourself, I think that's really good. Making sure that you have that, those techniques in your everyday life is really going to improve your voice quality, hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have any more questions for me?
I don't think so. I feel pretty good. You were really thorough in explaining everything, so I feel like I can work on applying this.
Great. And then you have your homework, and we can take that back and talk about it next week and see how it's doing.
Okay, that sounds great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Killed it. Do you think I covered everything?
I think so.